is potentially one of the greatest takeaway moments from last night, because for all of the Trump listing accomplishments and how the country is turning in a different direction and has turned in a different direction, a lot of it is to people somewhat rhetorical. Now, that being said, even CNN did some of their live polling, and they showed an increase. Like, the economy is obviously the big concern for a lot of people, and there was about a 10-point or more jump. We'll go over some of those numbers of those who felt that we are headed in the right direction after the speech versus before. So you not only did not have movement in the other direction, and you didn't have just stagnant, like pretty much unchanged, but there was a bit of a movement. Now, it's CNN, it's one instant polling, but you did have a number of individuals that went into it thinking, yeah, we're headed in the wrong direction. But once they heard Trump explain what's going on, what we're doing, they were like, oh, okay. Oh, no, now I do feel good about it. So that's a positive. I think that perhaps just really the most powerful, it's not just imagery, but the Democrats continue to solidify themselves as the party that is not a party that represents the American people. And in the instances that they are focused on the American people, it is the 10 to 20% that they are siding with, like people who want pornography in elementary schools. By the way, if you think that is an exaggeration, there is a Democrat lawmaker who is also trans, Minnesota or Michigan, one of the two, that has argued that trans kids should have access to pornography in schools as an educational tool, not the hardcore stuff, just the softcore pornography. So Democrats are getting to the point where they are fully acknowledging now that they are pushing for pornography to be in elementary schools. And then the sex change operations for kids and that sort of stuff. But outside of that, who is it that we see on a regular basis Democrats hold rallies for, or have the press conferences for, or they will put up a GoFundMe, a fundraiser? It's for people who aren't even Americans. And they are so anchored in that. And listen, these people get the speech ahead of time. They know what is coming. They knew that Trump was going to say, hey, if at the very least, you believe that your number one job should be Americans, not non-Americans, illegal aliens, stand up. The decision was made, no, we need the American people to know that we are on the side of the criminal. We are on the side of the illegals. This is how anchored in they are into that. And they believe that their followers have been conditioned enough to just believe that they're good and Trump is evil, that it doesn't matter what they do or whom they support, that their followers will stay lockstep with them. And there is some truth to that. It's just, they're gambling on the fact that a majority of Americans, or they have drug us to the point that a majority of Americans would rather elect people to look out for people outside our borders as opposed to them, us, ourselves. I know you and I would like to think that we have not gotten to that point yet. I mean, after all, what's the point of even electing people? Why not just have online voting for the world? I mean, after all, you think that there won't be Democrats that at some point in the relatively near future that won't suggest that? Trust me, they will. They will argue we're the world's superpower and that we utilize resources from all over the world. And so, essentially, our lawmakers have an impact on every world citizen, so every world citizen should have a say. Just because they're poor, just because they don't have the resources that we have, or what resources they do have, we have taken from them, and because we benefit from them, that the world should be able to vote on our leaders. That is only fair. And of course, you do that by way of allowing people to vote online. That day will come. And if you think that they will never be that radical, if 10, 20 years ago you had been told this is a political party that will support 10-year-old kids getting sex change operations, you would have said that's madness. That will never happen. But here's where we are. We'll play some of the clips from the State of the Union. Overall, I think that most people are going to recognize that it was a success for President Trump. You're going to hear a lot. Did what he needed to do, rallied the base, convinced some people that were headed in the right direction that maybe weren't convinced before, and again, gave Democrats their rope to hang themselves in front of the American people. A lot of the standard hysterics. Congressman Green I want to say he got thrown out of the last State of the Union as well, but I could be wrong on that. I know he's been removed from something at some point. He's one of the lunatic Democrats that screams and yells, and he waves his cane in the air, and so he had to be removed. Ilhan Omar, she screamed and, gave her hysterical performance as well, and it's just that demonstration. And it's always, what's it always for? Not Americans. No. Not for law-abiding Americans. It's for the others. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight a slight chance of showers between midnight and 2 a.m. Otherwise partly cloudy with a low around 41. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 63. And for Friday, sunny with a high near 72.
Green, Democrat Congressman Green was thrown out last year. Now, the first State of the Union for a president is officially referred to as joint session of Congress because it's not considered, I guess, polite to address the, quote, State of the Union based off of what your predecessor has done. And so it's just a joint session of Congress. And while, Trump, of course, it wasn't his first State of the Union because he hadn't served the previous 4 years. It was before that. And last year when he addressed Congress, it was based off of Biden's America, or the results thereof. It's officially referred to in those particular instances as a joint session of Congress, but it's the same thing. And yeah, it was Green. He was thrown out. Then he was thrown out this time. He was screaming and yelling, and he had a sign that said, "Well, black people aren't apes," or something like that.
Black people aren't apes.
Yeah. I think he's filed 128 articles of impeachment. I mean, he's just an unhinged nut. But he gets voted in. He's in a heavily Democrat district, and if there is a nutty member of Congress, you can guarantee that it's a pretty blue, deep blue area of the country. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. We've got traffic. I'm Nick Reed. Now, Trump did, of course, what I think many people expected and noted that he needed to do, and he talked about some of the successes, and as is oftentimes done, you highlight the real life benefactors of these differences, and lower prescription drug prices, the Trump RX sort of deal. He highlighted you had there in the audience the first person that benefited from it, and you've got the introduction, just to sort of give you a sense of this, the difference again between whom it is that Democrats in their minds see that they are supposed to represent versus Republicans. And Trump has somebody who benefits from the prescription drug program that he was responsible for. They've got someone up there that is a victim of an illegal immigrant. A couple of individuals, the mother of the Ukrainian refugee that was brutally murdered. Now, that was just a criminal that was legal, but part of the overall judicial system problem that we have in blue areas of the country where, the guy's got a rap sheet 80 miles long, and it was very clear that he was going to do something like this. No reasonable person would have believed otherwise, and that's just, that's the price you pay when you live in certain areas of this country in particular. And so, Trump's promise of law and order, and this is one of the areas in which, of course, he's made meaningful difference, up to and when necessary, utilizing National Guard to make it safer for people. The people that he makes these meaningful differences for so often disproportionately benefit immigrants and non-white people, particularly when it comes to crime. This is an area that gets ignored or is just not understood by people on the left. And it's understandable that even Trump supporters may not recognize the reality of this. But when you are cleaning up crime, when you are taking the steps that Trump has taken, when it comes to just overall crime, it is the person of color who benefits the most. The crime disproportionately hits the inner city, and where is it that you have the highest percentage of minorities, specifically black people in this country? It's in the inner cities. For all the talk of Black Lives Matter and people on the left that virtue signaled for that organization, what good did it do? It bought some people, some scam artists, nice new cars and trips all over the world and mansions. Would you ever see the success stories of all of that money raised? Have you ever seen one? Because the media would certainly be more than happy to have these great success stories. And look what all the Black Lives Matter organizations have done with the hundreds of millions of dollars donated by citizens like you, by small businesses, by massive corporations. Oh, look at these lives, these black lives that have been changed for the better. Have you seen one documentary, one news segment anywhere in this country based off of that? No. The only noteworthy stories are how people were scamming the donors for the organization. So you've got that side of it. Then you have Trump, who, with no bipartisan things whatsoever, in fact, they fight against him, take actual steps that demonstrates he does believe Black Lives Matter. Steps to save lives. When you look at Washington, D.C., and how in January there was one homicide versus 10 homicides the January prior, what color do you think those victims are in inner city Washington, D.C.? First off, just sheer numbers, 9 lives saved. And while you don't know for sure because you don't have a time machine in which you can fork off and see this future versus the future that actually happened, the population makeup and history tells us that a vast majority, if not all of those 9 lives that were saved because of Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. would have been black people. Who, when it comes down to it, who really, truly, through their actions, demonstrates they care more about black lives? If you gauge it based off of how much money you've raised, how much virtue signaling you do on social media, how many protests that you have attended, then the Democrats' version is probably the one that is a demonstration of a greater concern for black people's lives. But if you measure it by, black people's lives, the actual thing that you claim that you care about, then Donald Trump far exceeds the left when it comes to demonstrating Black Lives Matter. That's just fact. And so what you see at the State of the Union, for all of, you can talk about the numbers and the individual people, but when you draw back, you see such a clear defining difference between the Trump and the Republican approach under Donald Trump versus the Democrat approach, and you're talking about Americans. You're talking about people who save on prescription drugs. You talk about people who are victims of crime, of a broken system that Donald Trump has been working to fix, while the other side of the aisle bends over backwards to stop it from being fixed and, in fact, highlights and celebrates people who break the law. I don't know what the actual numbers were, but prior to the event, DHS announced that some Democrats were bringing people to the State of the Union who are in this country illegally. Ro Khanna, we heard about how, this is unbelievable, but it should not surprise us. We heard about how there were going to be some, quote, Epstein victims that were brought to the State of the Union. Ro Khanna, who has really been sort of the Democrat that has spearheaded the false narrative that somehow the Epstein cover-up is to protect Donald Trump. He brought a, quote, victim with him. It was a victim that was one of Epstein's recruiters. Over 20 girls that are known were convinced and coaxed into coming to Epstein Island, in which they were essentially kidnapped and sold for sex by the person that Ro Khanna brought to the State of the Union address. Now, I fully understand that people can say that, well, she was 16 and she was a victim as well. And there can be some truth to that. I don't know the full details of what it is that particular person went, whether she was just a real proactive gung-ho, yeah, I want to help, I want to make money, I see this as my pathway to a life of luxury, or if she was someone who felt she had no choice. But of all the, quote, victims out there, that's the one you choose, one that created 20 additional victims, like turned it into a network marketing situation? I think that more than anything, and I think, again, it probably will go unnoticed because it is an unspoken narrative that was on display last night. There are two political parties, clearly, but almost two governments. There's the government that represents the American people and the country, its best interest. And then there is the Congress, there's the government, there's the political party that represents the interest of everyone else. And those Americans that they do represent are the criminals. And last night really, I believe, reinforced that. All right, we'll do some audio coming up here. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. We got a Heroes Breakfast this Friday.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
yes,
We sure
indeed
do.
Heroes Breakfast. If you are a veteran, love for you to join us at Scramblers from 6A to 9A this Friday. And veterans get free breakfast. That is thanks to Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, The Warrior's Journey. Incredible organization, and of course Scramblers with their generosity, and that will be for veterans this Friday from 6A to 9A. And if you do happen to be over at KSGF.com for whatever reason, get signed up for Lunch Bunch every Wednesday. Today's a day for us. We're going to have lunch with a winner, one of you, and up to 5 of your friends at Godfather's Pizza, the Springfield location with their lunch buffet and salad bar. If you want to win, get signed up at KSGF.com. Taco, taco!
Tacos!
Ay, ay, ay.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks first
That means
meteorologist
taco.
Tom Schmidt. You're so dumb.
Well,
Our weather, it's sponsored by JNS Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight, a slight chance of showers between midnight and 2 a.m., otherwise partly cloudy with a low around 41. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 63. And taking a look at Friday, sunny with a high near 72.
there's obviously going to be a lot of discussion about the State of the Union address, and I've seen a number of different polls. Apparently, CBS polling showed that Americans that viewed the State of the Union walked away feeling better than before. CNN had a similar poll, particularly when it came to the economy, and I think that that is definitely a success. To have that sort of movement, I do believe that just long term, the State of the Union is really highlighting the differences between the two parties. And the parties have always had differences, right? But I think most would argue, particularly compared to the way it is today, the parties, the one thing that unified is like, well, we're all in this for obviously America, and we all love America, and we're all here to represent Americans, number one. I mean, even it wasn't that far back, and you can find the video and audio of some of these very same Democrats talking about the need to deport people in this country illegally. It wasn't until somewhat recently that Democrats decided to be against enforcing our laws and instead siding with those who come here to the country illegally. And so the point being is, while the two parties have always had their differences, they were seen as differences on how best to make America number one, how best to represent America, how best to make you as an American citizen, a constituent, the number one priority of the president, of your elected official. And that just isn't the case anymore. Last night, Donald Trump served up an opportunity for Democrats to, as much as it would have been virtue signaling, to claim otherwise, to say, no, that's not true. Our number one priority is the American citizen over everyone else in the world. And he did that by asking people to stand up. Now, he did this very deliberately. And for people on the left who say, well, he only did this because he knew that Democrats wouldn't stand up, that's not really a great comment on the Democrat Party. That it is so clear and so obvious that Democrats do not believe their job is to represent the American person, that Trump asking people to stand up who believes that was clearly political because he knew Democrats wouldn't stand up. That's not an insult or a criticism or a bad view of Trump. That's the Democrat Party that's got a problem. Here's that moment last night during the State of the Union.
One of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight, I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
All right, now I'm going to pull the volume down here because the cheering from the Republicans at the State of the Union went on for roughly 60 seconds, which may not seem on paper like a long time, but it is an eternity. Of course, if you watched it last night, you got a sense of how long that is. That should be such a no-brainer. I'm telling you, I think even 10 years ago, every Democrat would have stood up. Every Democrat, whether they actually believed it or not, would have stood up. They would have, their criticism would have been that Trump would have even suggested by asking the question that they wouldn't stand up. I remember when, forget which election it was, but I want to say it was the election, it may have been 2016. But if not, it would have been 2012. And Giuliani was running. And Giuliani had made a comment about how he didn't think Biden was, that he didn't think Biden really loved America or was proud of America or something like that. And the left pitched such a tremendous fit that Giuliani he chose to apologize and walk it back. And I remember thinking at the time, why is he supposed to, why would Obama love this country when you listen to the stuff he says about it? He runs around apologizing, says that, we're a bunch of bitter clingers and we're built on, and all this horrible stuff. But then you're like, oh, but I love you. Like, why would he? The base clearly doesn't. And we've seen now it evolve to that point to where they are fully exposed. And just, 10, 20 years ago, that question being asked, that proposal during a State of the Union, the Democrats would have claimed that it was divisive because it was somehow suggesting that they don't believe in supporting our country first. Look how far they have fallen. So the applause goes on for roughly 60 seconds, and then he carries on, and at some point, I think this is when you hear Ilhan Omar, losing it and screaming hysterically.
Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
That may go as the it's certainly going to be recognized, but it might go as the most underappreciated moment of the night in terms of the impression that so many Americans will walk away from. You know it. Like, you get it. So to you, it's more of a validation than anything. What you still have, though, as crazy as it may seem, you have a lot of Americans that are kind of for the first time paying attention to this stuff, some of that because of their age. You have a lot of people who are in the inner cities in particular. I'm telling you, the black population sees this. And what doesn't get coverage is that at so many of these town hall meetings that have been occurring over the last several years, in the inner cities are black people railing against the local government because what they have seen is people who are in this country illegally being made a priority over them. We played audio from Chicago, I know in particular, of some black citizens just railing on the mayor for prioritizing people in this country illegally over the black population. Just in terms of crime itself, again, when Trump and D.C. is a perfect example of the National Guard, the people who are opposed to it, you would see white liberals, mostly women. The videos that would get posted of people, and there was one that I played at the time because it just stood out, and it was a black woman, and she was filming herself because for the first time that she could remember, she was at an intersection with her windows rolled down because the weather was nice, and she just could not believe in Washington, D.C. she felt safe enough to do that. When those folks in the inner city, people of color, people who have long been told this is just what it's like, and they have actually seen somebody come into office that says it doesn't have to be this way, let me show you, and proved it, and then here at the State of the Union talking about this and saying, and you've got a bit of a dovetail because he is talking about the issue of illegal immigration, but he's talking about who is the number one priority, and Americans should be your number one priority. And then after the applause about the crime aspect and how in the cities that these Democrats, the people they are defending with sanctuary cities are the criminals. And then you see that this is so outrageous to Democrats. You have some of these members screaming and yelling hysterically like Ilhan Omar. There are a lot of people that might have watched that State of the Union and they feel as if they are disappointed because the economy isn't turning around the way that they want it to, or as quickly as they thought it might, just because of the rhetoric of campaigns and day one sort of stuff. But I'm telling you, particularly in the inner cities and the minorities, that they see that sort of thing, that sticks with them in terms of identifying one party versus the other. Because that tells them this isn't about issues. This is about whom it is each side actually cares about and represents through their own acknowledgement. Traffic update, Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. At another couple bits of audio. This one is red meat for a lot of Americans, and this is another one of those. It's just amazing some of these issues that Trump talks about, and they're 80-20 issues, and Democrats just won't even stand up for. Like the SAVE Act. We'll play some of that. I mean, that's straight up a vast majority of Democrats, over 70% of Democrats, support proving you are a citizen in order to vote. And the fact that Democrats are fighting back against this, again, two sides. One on the side of Americans, the other on the side of people who want to vote in this country as people from other countries. The issue of buying and selling stock as a member of Congress. And what many people have noted is that some people, particularly those that might have knowledge of different governmental contracts or things going on with the military that other members of Congress don't necessarily have access to, and how it is that some of those people really manage to know exactly when to buy and sell stock, Nancy Pelosi being one of them. There's an app that was created that simply follows her family's stock purchases and sales because they just amazingly are on spot, on point so often, and as resulted in amassing of wealth by Nancy Pelosi. And so there have been calls for some time to ban this, though I believe no matter how you do it, that still there will be some of these people will find ways around it. But that being said, here is Trump talking about that particular issue at the State of the Union.
As we ensure that all Americans can profit from a rising stock market, let's also ensure that members of Congress cannot corruptly profit from using insider information. They stood up for that. I can't believe. I can't believe it. Did Nancy Pelosi stand up if she's here? Got it. Pass the Stop Insider Trading Act without delay. I wasn't sure if anybody even on this side was going to applaud for that. I'm very impressed. Thank you. I'm very impressed.
You know, this is one of those particular issues that I am not as locked into as a lot of other people because I, knowing human nature, believe that those that really are corrupt and game the system, like the Nancy Pelosi's, they'll find ways around it, even if it's as straight up as you've got someone that is an ally, a confidant, a best friend that you have do all that for you, and they get a percentage of it. They do it under their name. You make sure they have the money to do it. And while there's a lot of people say, well, you could probably track that, I suspect that, that there probably won't be a massive amount of real focused enforcement to make sure no one's getting around it. And I know that is cynical. And I'm not saying that means that the law shouldn't be passed. But this is one of those that I imagine kind of like gun control laws, that the only people that will really be affected are the good people who aren't really taking advantage of their position in any way that is immoral or even perhaps illegal, and the really bad, corrupt individuals in Congress, they'll figure out a way around it. But, again, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be law. I just don't believe that's really going to make that much of a difference when it comes to somehow stopping the corrupt in Washington from being corrupt. Now, the fact that Democrats are against the SAVE Act requiring people to prove that they are American citizens that can legally vote in order to vote, it really doesn't surprise me because while a lot of people say, why would they be against something that so many Americans are for, they have given up on trying to win over the American person in terms of acquiring power. This is why they've taken to trying to, they throw Republicans off the ballot, or they try to prevent Democrats that they think will be harmful to their cause. They throw them off the ballot. They try to flood illegals into the country in states that are blue states in order to give them a greater number of members of Congress. So they're trying it this way. And so they see, in terms of the math, they feel as if they have more to gain by making it easier for people to vote illegally in this country than they fear losing by being on that side. And here's Trump last night talking about the need to pass the SAVE Act.
Perhaps most importantly, I'm asking you to approve the Save America Act. To stop illegal aliens and others who are unpermitted persons from voting in our sacred American elections. That cheating is rampant in our elections. It's rampant. It's very simple. All voters must show voter ID. All voters must show proof of citizenship in order to vote. And no more crooked mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. None. Now, this should be an easy one. And by the way, it's polling at 89%, including Democrats. 89%. And even the new communist mayor of New York City, I think he's a nice guy, actually. I speak to him a lot. Bad policy, but nice guy. Just said they want people to shovel snow. They got hit hard. Wants them to shovel snow, but if you apply for that job, you need to show 2 original forms of ID and a social security card. Yet they don't want identification for the of them all voting in America. No, it's no good. No good. Both Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly agree on the policy that we just enunciated. And Congress should unite and enact this common sense, country saving legislation right now, and it should be before anything else happens. The reason they don't want to do it, why would anybody not want voter ID? One reason, because they want to cheat. There's only one reason. They make up all excuses. They say it's racist. They come up with things. You almost say, what imagination they have. They want to cheat. They have cheated. And their policy is so bad that the only way they can get elected is to cheat. And we're going to stop it. We have to stop it, John.
Trump is known for, oftentimes throwing out there these allegations of, well, they do it because of this and that. And while the average person may think, he says that's why, it's for cheating. The reality is most rational people, even if they try, can't think of any other reason. As Trump was noting here, what other reason can possibly exist? And what he has on his side is that most people recognize there is no other reason other than cheating. Springfield's Talk 104.1. This Friday, we do have a Heroes Breakfast, veterans free breakfast for you at Scramblers. As we broadcast live from 6 to 9 a.m. this Friday. Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, The Warrior's Journey, Delta Roofing, and Scramblers all making it possible for us to do that show out there and you to get free breakfast as veterans from 6 to 9 a.m. Again, that is this Friday. And are we going to have, do we have one more pair that we're giving away for the Christian County Lincoln Days, or was that last week?
Yes, that is the last chance.
That will be Friday. We'll have a text to win on that. I'll be emceeing the event, and I know we've gotten all of the winners but one. There is a KSGF table that has been donated by the Christian County folks there of the Christian County, Missouri Republicans. And so that is always kind of a fun thing. Dinner, drinks if you want, some great speakers, chance to kind of mingle around with folks if you'd like to do so. So your chance to win. And I'm guessing you could probably, if you go to their site, still buy tickets. I haven't heard anything in terms of status of how close to being sold out, if they are, if they aren't. But, that's something that you can check out if you are interested or inquire with us, and we'll make sure that you get connected up with the right people should you want to go ahead and purchase yourself a pair of tickets or a table even, if you'd like to do that. The Pinnagar Honda big max your tax refund sales event is going on. They've got everything from $198 a month leases for the brand new 26 Civic. Brand new 26 Honda HR-V Sport for $289 a month. 25 Honda Pilot, now $3,000 off with rates as low as 2.49%. And they still have the 1.49% available on select certified pre-owned vehicles happening now through March 2nd. Busy time of the year for them. If you do happen to make it over there, you'll see that, among other things, they are this time of year involved in the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women event, which I know a lot of area organizations and businesses help out with that. But at the same time, they are a sponsor, once again this year, of the Polar Plunge at the Ski Shack on March 7th. And that supports local Special Olympics. That sometimes doesn't get quite as much coverage as some of the other different events and organizations do. And so if you've ever wondered how it is that you can be involved or help out or just want to support those that do, when it comes to the Special Olympics, that is going to be coming up March 7th. But you can stop by and ask any of the folks at Pinnagar Honda. I know the GM over there and some of the others actually participate in that plunge because they are apparently crazy. I don't know where that's, I've just never, nope. That cold water plunge stuff.
Yeah, no thanks.
Like, it's healthy. Like, I'll eat some celery instead. I mean, there are a lot of things that are healthy. Why do we have to find the thing that even people who like it, as they're doing it, they're like, oh.
They look like they're in pain, yes.
I'm like, you're not selling this to me. This is not good marketing for your adherence to this form of staying healthy. But the way I look at it is 10 years from now, they'll be like, for every polar plunge one does, or ice baths, every ice bath you do, it takes 10 minutes off your life. I'm like, see, told you. But obviously I'm joking. Great cause. I'm not joking about the fact that I will not do that. I won't say never. Boy, there'd have to be some real big reward for me, not for others. For me. None of this good cause stuff. I'm obviously joking there, too. Kind of. All right. There was the State of the Union, and then after the State of the Union was about highlighting Americans and the benefit to Americans and protecting Americans, and, just straight up Trump being like, who here thinks that your job is to make America number one and to represent Americans, not, illegals? Stand up. Republicans stood up, and Democrats were like, no, we know who we represent. And at this point, I think they're comfortable with the rest of the world knowing, and so they no longer have to hide it. There's always the response. I'm not a big believer in the response. The response is, it is one of those occurrences based off of well, it's always been done, so it seems obligatory. You just can't win with something like that. You don't have the pomp and circumstance and the applause, and it just you can't. You just can't. It's the difference between having, like, you've got, let's say, two comedians. Sunday, Nate Bargatze was at the arena, Great Southern, and so you got 10,000 people or however many that holds, and it's huge, and they're laughing, hysterical. And then you can have somebody else, and even if they're just as funny, but there's no audience, and you're just sitting there watching them tell jokes, and yeah, it's just different. It just doesn't have the feel to it, but it's always done. And you have the new Democrat governor of Virginia, Spamberger, former CIA agent, who, as soon as she got in there, began, just out of the gate, the Democrats collaborating on every which way they could raise taxes on the average citizen. We're not talking about just, people making $1 million plus, taxes left and right out the yazoo. And then last night talks about how their policies and their plans are about affordability. So much like the term boy means girl, and girl means boy, and secure border means open border, and open border means secure border, and every other term that they have turned upside down, apparently affordable means it costs more. Because everywhere, be it Democrats when they take over a state like Virginia, or Mamdani in New York City, who's doing the same thing, putting up new additional parking meters that people have to pay in order to park, looking at raising taxes on anyone who commits the sin of owning property in New York City. So the Democrats' new definition of affordability is making it cost more. Then you had not the response to the State of the Union, but the alternative State of the Union. And it's being put on by the same people who mocked the idea of an alternative halftime show at the Super Bowl. If you notice, it's the same people. Well, the same people who think that there needs to be an alternative halftime show are the same people that believed in separate water fountains and bathrooms. Oh, okay, so does that apply to this? Of course not. That's different, see? Did you see any of this? Let me tell you what the Republicans need to do. Republicans need to be responsible for pumping out the Democrats' alternative State of the Union address to as many people as possible. This was an event that was, I think there were 74 or 75 Democrats who didn't want to go to the State of the Union. And so instead they go to this with other really rich, wealthy white people, the Robert De Niro's and the Mark Ruffalos, these 0.01 percenters. They were there as well because the Democrat Party is the party of the rich. And this was the opening of that State of the Union address, or alternative.
I am a physician, and I have a flag. And I am the proud representative for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. Yes, thank you. Thank you. His authoritarian project by standing in joyful, radical, peaceful resistance with the Portland Frog Brigade.
Aside from how
I did see this.
Aside from how pleasant her voice is on the ear, she was surrounded by people in inflatable frog suits, and this apparently is a thing in her district or around that area, in which left wingers, you've seen, they get in these inflatable things and they prance around in them, and this is supposed to somehow demonstrate their level of seriousness. I don't know that they know the point. I think they are just so obsessed with they're attention whores is the best term to use to describe. They're attention whores. And so whatever it is they can do just to get attention, they're so thirsty for it, they will do it as little sense as it makes. And so for Democrats, that has been getting in some of these inflatable suits. And so you think about this. You have the State of the Union. You have the President of the United States. You've got this this historic tradition in America in which it's not about political parties, but it is just about the governing bodies and the executive branch delivering to the legislative branch, hey, here, which is this something that's required? It's not required to actually show up. Obviously, not required to be televised. Forever and a day, it was just sort of a little book report, a written report. Hey, here's kind of what's going on. And of course, as time has evolved, it has turned into this annual event with pomp and circumstance. And there is a level of just seriousness that's there. Though Democrats have increasingly turned themselves into the audience of the Jerry Springer show when they scream and yell and holler at the president and have to get thrown out, much like, again, out of control guest on the Jerry Springer show in the past. But you've got serious discussion matter. You've got the introduction of the State of the Union, a victim of illegal immigration crimes. You've got individuals that are benefiting from the policies of this country. You have discussions about serious issues such as Iran, and one of the brighter moments was the introduction of a political prisoner from Venezuela who was freed because of the arrest of the drug cartel leader that was pretending to be president down there, and he was reunited with his niece, whom she had presumably didn't know she'd ever see him again, and so it was sort of this surprise visit deal. And then you have the unseriousness of the Democrats holding what they feel is a superior alternative to all of that. This address to not just the nation, but the world pays attention to this. And you have this ding-dong idiot standing up there with a bunch of lunatics wearing inflatable frog suits. I don't know that the Democrat Party is capable of presenting itself as normal at this point. And I know I'm not the only one who's noted this. There's a difference between being out of touch and then being so out of touch you don't even know how to pretend to be in touch. And that's where the Democrats are. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight, a slight chance of showers between midnight and 2 a.m. Otherwise, partly cloudy with a low around 41. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 63. And for Friday, sunny skies with a high near 72.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Home buying needs, home selling needs, oftentimes doing both at the same time. Maybe you are an individual that buys large plots of land, or maybe you've done the ranch life and you're looking at downsizing because you got into the age where you're getting out of that game. You don't want to do it any longer, but you want to make sure you have someone that is helping you with the sale that actually really kind of knows the big land stuff. And while Emily Johnson is well versed in all things real estate, her husband is really an expert when it comes to that area, Will, which is why she brought him on board, and that's why you're completely covered. Whether you are looking to be smack dab in the middle of town or the suburbs, or out on 20,000 acres, something massive like that, you are taken care of. You are covered when it comes to all of that, buying, selling, and just wanting to know maybe what your home's worth. Is this a good time? Advice on, quote, playing the market, if you will. Reach out. Incredible resource, and more than willing to share her expertise with you with any questions you have. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Regarding the Democrat response, the alternative State of the Union, rather, in which with a bunch of Democrats in giant frog suits, you had this Democrat congresswoman claiming that she was pushing back against the authoritarianism of Trump, and a text coming in on the Pyramid Roofing Company text line. Doesn't she realize if Trump was a dictator, she wouldn't be allowed to do that? And this, of course, is the farce of the left, downplaying and watering down terms like Nazi, dictator, authoritarian, Hitler. Is none of that would be happening if Trump actually were any of those things. In fact, every time they make that claim, they're proving that he's not. That's the irony of them yapping their lips. And it also is a very sad rewriting of history, because what happens is you do have a lot of young people who don't understand what it really is to live under a dictatorship. They have no clue. And so when you have some of these depraved individuals that will say anything in order to cling to power, that portray Donald Trump as a dictator and he's going to do all these horrible, awful things, and you see how young Democrats in particular, go into hysterics when Trump does something that is just a normal. Yeah, you may disagree with it politically, but hey, this is what the president does this, does that. And they go nuts over it because in their minds, they think that's a dictatorship. They don't have any true concept. I don't think there has been any greater subtle erasing of history that we have seen in this country in the modern era than Democrats have successfully done when it comes to the actual horrors of the Holocaust, by trying to and successfully convincing young people that what we're going through in America here today, what they're going through, is the same thing as what the Jewish people went through and the Poles and, virtually anyone that wasn't a Nazi, that was an enemy of the Nazi, went through in Germany during World War II, pre-World War II. Think about that for a moment. A lot of these younger Democrats really genuinely believe that is what a Nazi is, what they're going through as somebody who's anti-Trump, that they are going through an America that is run by Nazis, that is run by today's Hitler. That is erasing history. By taking new generations of people and stripping from them the knowledge, or blocking from them ever having the knowledge of what actually happened under Hitler. Because anyone who knows what happened under Hitler knows that it is beyond insulting and depraved to claim that Trump is Hitler or he's a Nazi. This is why when Tim Walz just weeks ago used the reference again, he talked about compared what illegal immigrants are going through to Anne Frank. And finally, you had one of the major Holocaust remembrance organizations call him out and saying, this is anywhere near a moral comparison at all. It is immoral, and it has to stop. Because while the left simply sees it as, well, really sticking it to them, they're erasing the true horrors of the Holocaust. They are erasing the true horrors of what occurred under Nazis and socialism in socialist Germany. And that's not a positive thing. Because last night, I believe, more than anything, long game, people, this was a validation for a lot of people's understanding already, but I think an introduction to some Americans who haven't quite figured it out, that we do have a party system in which one party represents America and Americans and the other does not. And that they fully acknowledged that last night by refusing to stand when Trump said, hey, everyone who believes that your job should be Americans first and representing Americans as opposed to people who aren't Americans, stand up, and Democrats refuse to do so. So they're on the record of acknowledging that. I want to play for you in that context coming up. There was a press conference recently, this may have been as recent as yesterday, Jim Cooper, and he's the sheriff in Sacramento County, California. And the Democrats there passed a law that says if you have served, let's say you get sentenced to 100 years from some horrific crime, and you've served at least 20 of them, and you turn 50, you're good, you can get out. And one of the individuals that is the recipient of this Democrat benefit is a horrific child abuser, child molester, and he will go out and commit more horrific acts of child sex crimes. I mean, there's no doubt about it, given his history. And I want to play for you the audio from the sheriff talking about this and almost rhetorically asking the question, what the hell has happened to California when this is who we have become? And I'm playing it again in the context of this display yesterday, last night at the State of the Union, in which you have Democrats acknowledging that Americans are not the number one priority for them any longer.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight we have a slight chance of showers between midnight and 2 a.m., otherwise partly cloudy with a low near 41. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 63, and taking a look at Friday, it's going to be beautiful, sunny skies with a high near 72.
Sorry, I was looking at some new Gavin Newsom headline. Didn't know if it was something I missed.
Oh,
we got some new Gavin Newsom stuff coming up later in the hour.
What a mess.
Well, I'll just tell you, I'll play it later, but I'm amazed at how not ready for prime time Gavin Newsom is. I'll say this has surprised me to some degree. Because he, on the surface, looks so slick, you think, oh boy, he's going to be a smooth
got it together.
But got it together in a way that you would recognize, like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Almost kind of like Clinton, where one of the things I really did not like about Clinton was because I understood why people were drawn into him. Now, I smelled it. I knew it was all that I got it. I smelled that guy from a mile away, just the whole, I feel your pain stuff. And it was so frustrating to me because he was so good at it. And I got it. I 100% did not fault people who bought into it. Now, the Obama thing, completely I never thought he was some sort of magical speaker. I thought that was all smoke and mirrors. That was just the media telling you he was wonderful. But Gavin Newsom, I thought, would have this sort of Clinton way about him. And he has just managed to prove he is not ready for primetime. So, and I'm saying I'm not going to get into this, but I'll just let you know what some of the audio is. Because it's so funny. We played the audio as so many other people did, where he was talking about to a black audience that he's just like them and he can't really read very well. So he did a podcast interview with a couple of white people some time ago, in which one or both of them wrote a book, and he went on and on about how great the book was and how he read all 263 pages in just like such a short amount of time, and how, I mean, he's going on and on like some sort of book critic, and how it was so easy to read. And so what people have done is they put the side by side Gavin Newsom talking to white people about reading, and he's just going on and having articulate perspectives, and then here he is talking to black people and like, I can't read good just like you. This guy is I'm really enjoying his existence more and more as the days go by. All right, now let's go back to something a bit more serious here. And this is important in and of itself. Sacramento County Sheriff Jim Cooper held a press conference after it was confirmed that a convicted serial child molester by the name of David Allen Funston, once described in court as the monster parents fear most, has been approved for parole under California's new elderly parole program. Funston, who's now 64 years old, was convicted in 1999 of kidnapping and molesting young children in Sacramento County in the mid-90s. A judge had labeled him a threat to society, and he received 3 consecutive 25-to-life terms. So that would, at a minimum, be 75 years. At a maximum, his entire life 3 times over. Plus additional time on top of that. Under the new Democrat elderly parole law, which allows inmates over the age of 50 who have served at least 20 years to be considered for release. So this guy, 3 life sentences, but because he got lucky and committed these crimes young enough, by the time he turned 50, he served 20 years, and so he gets to get out. And he's going to be, once again, this is not an individual that has demonstrated that he is rehabilitated. This is a serial sexual offender. There will be children that get molested, perhaps killed, because he is let out on the streets under this Democrat policy. I want to play you some of the audio from the sheriff talking about this yesterday. And the reason I bring this up is, one, it is important, but I think it is another further demonstration of what we saw last night at the State of the Union address. And that is a Democrat Party that fully acknowledges that they are not there to represent the law-abiding citizen. And while Trump asked, it was sort of twofold. Because what he did at the State of the Union was say, everybody stand up if you feel your number one job is to and is for the U.S. government, and of course they are representatives within that run the U.S. government, is to look out and protect the American person, not other people, not people who are in this country illegally. Now, aside from the represent us versus them, part of representing American citizens is protecting them from psychopaths that we know are going to go out and commit future crimes. But when Democrats aren't defending illegal immigrants, they are defending criminals, which, of course, sometimes are one and the same. Not always, but it really does appear to be the only category of American citizen, actual citizen, that Democrats can be counted on to defend, and that is the criminal. And while I believe people can be rehabilitated, and I am a believer in if somebody serves their time, that was allotted to them, then they served their time. What we see with Democrats is the time is always too much time. And even while they are criminals, no matter how bad they are, they should be catered to. They should take top priority over the American citizen. And that is part of what was behind the motivation of this Democrat law in California. And here's that sheriff of Sacramento County yesterday about this specific case.
As a parent or anyone around kids, hey, don't take candy from strangers. Don't follow anyone. Don't get in someone's car. This is what he did. Lured them with candy, Barbie dolls, toys, and abused these kids horrifically. Horrifically. He was given 3 consecutive terms, 20-year terms. He should have been in prison the rest of his life. Unfortunately, in 2020, a bill was passed that made folks eligible for parole as early as 50 years of age once they serve 20 years. So he qualifies. He's 64 years old. I'm 62. That is dead wrong. These children, he ruined their lives. And that is eligible. And the damage he's done, he stole their childhoods. And my issue is the parole board. I read the reports. They're horrific. You've seen some of the things he did. There's no explanation. You can't explain it away. There are some folks that deserve a second chance in life. Someone that does these type of things, they don't deserve a second chance in life. What are we coming to as a society here in California? That it's okay with this, to let him out. A judge in Sacramento described him, and I'll say this, as the monster parents fear most. Yet today, the parole board decided he is suitable for release. We can't have this. It's got to change. And in California, it's battle after battle when it comes to our children. A few years ago, we're fighting human trafficking of a child. That wasn't a violent felony. Had to fight to get it passed. They got it passed. Now we're dealing with mental health aversion. You can kill your 1-year-old infant and get your record expunged and go work with other kids. What the hell is going on in California?
Well, Gavin Newsom's going on in California. A one-party rule system is going on in California. This is Democrat leadership. It is the difference between the leadership of someone like Donald Trump. As much as some people hate him and think he says horrible things, he's a Nazi. His number one priority is looking out for law-abiding American citizens. The Democrat Party is the opposite. Now, this will seem like a separate issue, but it is the same issue. I want to play audio of, well, let me play about 20 seconds of it, and then I'll explain to you what it is and why it all falls into this same category.
Esta es la última semana para que los padres registren a sus hijos para el año escolar 2026-2027. Así que, para dar un último esfuerzo, decidí atraer una amiga.
Hola.
Mi español no es el mejor.
No te preocupes, alcalde. Si su hijo o hija está cumpliendo 3 o 4 años en el 2020.
All right, so what you're listening to, and it goes on for a bit of time, the first voice was Mayor of New York, Mamdani. The second voice you're hearing there is Democrat Congresswoman who represents an area of New York City, Ocasio-Cortez, and they are making a video in Spanish instructing illegal aliens how it is that they can get their children into taxpayer-funded 3K and pre-K programs. Diverting dollars that otherwise will be, or that are allotted for particularly minority parents, because again, we're talking about the inner city here. And every dollar that gets diverted to somebody who comes here illegally and then figures out how it is to enroll their child into the public system that is relying on tax dollars, that is a tax dollar that is taken away from an American citizen, disproportionately impacting people of color in this country. Now, while the sheriff from California was talking about Democrat policies that are putting lives at risk with the early release of violent child molesters, and here you have Mamdani and Ocasio-Cortez talking about how it is people who are in this country illegally can get tax dollars meant for American citizens and their children and utilize them up. The priority is that the representation is the same, and that is not law-abiding American citizens. It is becoming just extremely difficult to find any Democrat cause that they are willing to really put on the forefront that isn't about criminals and or illegal immigrants, non-American people. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company's spring is right around the corner, and now is the time to get the outside of your home prepped for the warmer weather. And one thing that oftentimes gets overlooked is your roof. If it's been a while since you've had a roof inspection, reach out to the Pyramid team. The roof inspections, they are free, and it's a good way to get a good gauge on the lifespan of your roof. And the best part is the Pyramid team, they are not high pressure. They don't use scare tactics, and they won't put you in some hour-long sales pitch on why you need to hire them. So if you are looking for a honest roofing company that uses high-quality materials and will just shoot you straight, you have definitely found it with the Pyramid Roofing Company. To schedule that free roof inspection, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
All right, let's see here. I wanted to share with you the latest developments over the last 24 hours. We knew, of course, this was going to naturally occur. New information regarding the shooting of the two Christian County deputies. And what was very quickly being revealed is that this was not the first time Richard Dean Byrd fired a gun at law enforcement. I want to share with you what Jackie Raywald has written in the Springfield Daily Citizen on the story, noting this week's fatal shooting of 2 Christian County deputies was not the first time Richard Dean Byrd fired a gun at law enforcement. Byrd, who was killed in a shootout with law enforcement Monday night, had been charged with attempted first-degree murder and theft in 2014 in Johnson County, Kansas. According to multiple news stories from 2014, Byrd was accused of firing shots at a Johnson County deputy in September of 2014. The deputy was not hit by the gunfire. The shots were fired, according to a KMBC report, as deputies were responding to a theft-in-progress call at a construction site. The incident triggered a massive manhunt in southern Johnson County as police searched for the shooter, according to the news report. Police released a surveillance picture of the person they were looking for, and Byrd was taken into custody near 175th Street and Knoll Avenue near the Camp Branch Glade Park in Johnson County about 2 hours later. Again, this is back in 2014. Kansas Online court records show a plea deal was reached. Now, again, he was charged with attempted first-degree murder. A plea deal was reached, and the attempted murder charge was lowered to aggravated battery, intentional, great bodily harm. He also pleaded guilty to fleeing from a law enforcement officer, interfering with law enforcement, criminal discharge of a firearm, and possession of narcotics. Online records indicate Byrd spent time in the Kansas Department of Corrections but was released sometime prior to January of 2022. When he incurred a speeding ticket in Stone County, Missouri. So what this tells us is, while we don't necessarily know the release date, we know based off the fact that he got a speeding ticket in January of 2022, he was out of jail by then. This means that he served just a handful of years for what originally began as the prosecution for attempted first-degree murder. Missouri Online court records show Stone County's prosecuting attorneys recently charged Byrd with the Class D felonies of second-degree burglary and stealing and the Class E felony of tampering with physical evidence. A warrant was served on February 21st. According to the probable cause statement, Byrd was suspected of breaking into a Stone County residence on February 16th of 2026 and stealing a safe containing a coin collection valued at about $2,000. On February 18th, Byrd was charged with the Class D felonies of receiving stolen property and possession of a controlled substance. Online records indicate Byrd was released last week on $50,000 bond. According to the probable cause statement for those charges, Byrd was suspected of stealing a utility task force or task vehicle on February 16th. Stone County deputies received information that the UTV had been located at a trailer occupied by Byrd. While executing a search warrant at the residence, deputies found other stolen items, including a log chain, elective box, and a manhole cover. Deputies also found methamphetamine and paraphernalia, including syringes. Byrd is a prior and persistent offender, the prosecutor noted in charging documents. 2 of Byrd's prior felony convictions in Missouri include a 2003 conviction for second-degree burglary in Cass County and a 2022 conviction for first-degree felony tampering with a motor vehicle. He also had numerous misdemeanor charges and charges for driving while revoked. And again, that is the piece written up by Jackie Raywald, reporter for the Springfield Daily Citizen. There are numerous perspectives on this, and it isn't hard to find them if you get on social media and read through people's comments regarding this latest scenario. And some of it centers around the fact that he was out on $50,000 bond, and if he had not been out on bond, this would not have happened. Now, I don't know, legally speaking, because this is not who I'm. This may be something Kyle Wyatt will talk about on his show Saturday. I don't know. If given, the charges that he was currently facing, if this would be considered reasonable, Now, some people will say the fact that he tried to, murder a law enforcement official in the past should have indicated that he should not have been allowed to be released on bond. I don't know whether that, I'm just going to plain speak you here. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if that's something that even can be taken into account. I have no idea. Maybe it can. I just don't know the answer to those questions. But here's something that I do know, and I have felt this for some time. This isn't some new stance based off of an emotional reaction to current circumstances. I've always felt that there should be no difference in punishment between attempting a crime versus successfully carrying it out. The idea that, and this is commonplace and it's not controversial, that being convicted of attempted murder or the amount of time one faces in prison for attempted murder is less than actual murder. That's something that is accepted in our society, and I just don't accept that. I don't think that you should serve less time simply because you failed. Whatever the crime is. Attempted arson, you get convicted, you should face the exact same penalty as someone who actually successfully carried out the arson. Burglary, rape, child molestation, kidnapping, murder. And I've always found it just, to me, bizarre. And I know I'm somewhat alone in this, probably not completely alone. Some of you may feel the same way, but it just seems flat out bizarre to me that we don't hold people in terms of the punitive component to this. We don't hold them accountable to the same degree simply because they fail, as opposed to if they succeed. I just don't think that should be a reward. If you deliberately attempt to murder someone and you fail, you should go to prison the same amount of time or face the same amount of time as you would if you had been successful at it. There's also the component of plea deals. And I think that is certainly an area of potential criticism with this particular case, that had they not pled down this, attempted first-degree murder of a police officer, then he could potentially, or in my world, should be in prison for the rest of his life, and then this would not have occurred. He would not even be out on the streets committing all these other crimes that he had committed between then and now, in addition to shooting 4 officers, killing 2 of them. Now, I fully acknowledge that the case itself in Kansas from 2014 is one I'm not familiar with, and there might be some valid, solid argument that, hey, it was a real weak case, and we didn't know that we could win because of this and that, and so we felt that this was better than him not serving any time at all, and that may be completely valid. But this is a recurring situation in this country in which people are able to plea down from something that really is not just serious in nature, but indicative that once this person gets out, they are enough of a danger that they probably are going to commit a crime again. And to me, this seems, at least based off the information that's available so far, to sort of fit that scenario.
Word, strong. President Trump's assessment delivered in a marathon address last night to a joint session of Congress.
Tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before, and a turnaround for the ages. It is indeed a turnaround for the ages.
A turnaround for the economy, according to the president, and for the border, for international diplomacy, and for the war on crime here at home. Mr. Trump says he would prefer a diplomatic solution to the nuclear standoff with Iran, but he's not taking a military option off the table. In a feel-good moment, the president lauded America's newest Olympic heroes.
The gold medal-winning U.S. men's Olympic hockey team has visited President Donald Trump at the White House and later received about a 2-minute bipartisan standing ovation during his State of the Union address. Trump also announced that the women's hockey team, which also defeated Canada to win gold, will visit the White House. The women's team had declined an invitation to attend the State of the Union due to the timing of the address. Trump also said goalie Connor Hellebuck will receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger delivered the Democrat response to the president's speech. She accuses Mr. Trump of lying and claims that Trump economic policies are harming Americans. More than 3 weeks after Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home in Arizona, her children say they're holding out hope for a miracle that will bring their mother back home. They're also offering a $1 million reward for the 84-year-old woman's return. Wall Street, ahead of this morning's opening bell. Dow futures up 140 points. NASDAQ futures ahead 114. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The U.S. dollar is under pressure, and some analysts are openly warning about the long-term stability of U.S. currency dominance. Whether you call it currency debasement or the collapse of the dollar, the risk is real. And when confidence in the U.S. dollar shifts, gold and silver historically respond. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 to get your free gold investment kit. You'll also receive a free copy of Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000.
As America's #1 motorcycle insurer, Progressive has your back.
Oh, like if I need a replacement part?
Sure, we can help with that.
Ah, nice. Hey, I just entered this online contest for coolest bike in the world. Think maybe you can vote for me?
Actually, we just do insurance, not popularity contests.
Yeah, I know. But what's your email? I'll just send you the link real quick. You can vote like 100 times a day. They'll never know.
To be clear, Progressive has your back for insurance only. So get a quote and see if you can save.
So what I'm hearing is there's a little bit of wiggle room.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates covered subject to policy terms, limits, and conditions.
Defense Secretary
watching replay clips. So we've got a number of different monitors in here of the different stations, and it showed the moment in which, at the State of the Union, Trump was, I don't know if honoring is the right word, but noting the mother of the refugee who made it here from Ukraine only to be killed by a criminal that was part of a blue county justice system in this country. It was just, once again, one of these completely unnecessary situations, but the criminal first priorities of so many of these blue cities and blue county prosecutors. And then I've also watched the imagery, and some of you, of course, saw this last night, but if not, you may see it replayed again, depending on the network you watch, in which it unveiled, if you will, coming into the upper area of the Capitol there, in which Trump is giving the speech, and it is a former political prisoner of Maduro who is being reunited with his niece, who's here in the United States, and didn't know if she would ever see him again, because he was the victim of a dictatorship in Maduro, and Trump is responsible for liberating him. And I can't help but, when, like those two in particular, when they sit there and they're watching the State of the Union, one is the mother of a daughter who is the completely needless victim of a crime by someone who was able to kill her because of the soft on crime policies. The other one who is liberated by Donald Trump from a true dictatorship. And I wonder if they're watching these Democrats thinking, what world are we living in here? I try to imagine their mindset. Someone whose daughter was here as a refugee, and you would, I'm sure that the mother of this girl needlessly murdered was probably thinking, how is it not universal that everyone who is supposed to be representing this country is up in arms about this and says we need to make sure that these things stop? How is it only one political party? What is wrong with these people? It's got to be very surreal for the political prisoner under Maduro to see that there's an entire political party that is not only not celebrating the arrest of a drug lord that was acting as a dictatorship in the country, but accused Trump of being a dictator, when this guy's literally liberated from an actual dictator because of Donald Trump. What was going on in the minds of those two human beings as they watched Democrats scream and yell at Trump? Some of them refused to show up, refusing to applaud some of the great things that are going on in this country, and recognizing their characterization of who Trump is, and of all the minds in there and all the thoughts going on. I imagine the most perplexed minds were the mother of that Ukrainian refugee and that recently freed political prisoner out of Venezuela. What a just insane world they must recognize we're in as they sit there and observe all of that, given their perspective on things. There is a local state rep, some of you may know. He's the Democrat that replaced Crystal Quaid. His name is Jeremy Dean. And he has announced in a news release that he is running for re-election. The reason this is noteworthy is because he made statewide news, perhaps even beyond that, because of the, what I would call, violent sexual language that he used when he specifically targeted a female lawmaker via text whom he knew was the victim of severe domestic abuse. And essentially mocked her when he realized that this was something that was upsetting to her. And then when he was criticized for it, turned it around on her, claiming that she essentially was using the situation and he was the true victim in all of this. He's a piece of crap human being. And while there was what many people, I think, outside of Jeff City in terms of normal human beings see as a slap on the wrist, in terms of there's essentially a restraining order that they had to put on him to protect this other female lawmaker, along with some courses that he has to go through because they recognize he's so mentally deranged that they apparently felt it was necessary. But at the same time, but we're not going to kick him out. The true test, however, is before us. And that is this acceptable behavior for Democrats? Because we're talking about a primary season. We're talking about the ability of Democrats to have anyone of their choosing to be in that seat. So this is going to be very telling, and I want to talk about this and just the serious nature. We're not talking about somebody that was telling off-color jokes. This guy was a predator. He was being predatory in the way that he specifically targeted someone that he knew was the victim of violent domestic abuse, serious domestic abuse. And then turned it around on her and made himself, or at least attempted to, the victim when he got in trouble for it. I think most of us recognize those behavior patterns are not the behavior patterns of a person that most people, including women, are going to be safe around. We're going to find out real quickly what the Democrat Party really, truly represents when it comes to how they deal with this announcement. So let's talk about that coming up. First, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from the Ozarks' first meteorologist, Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair, the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight we'll see a slight chance of showers between midnight and 2 a.m., otherwise partly cloudy with a low around 41. For your Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 63. And for Friday, sunny with a high near 72.
State Rep Jeremy Dean announced in a February 24th news release that he will be running for re-election. He represents District 132 in Springfield. Said that he seeks to reaffirm his commitment to working families and ensuring everyday Missourians have a voice in state government. He's a Democrat. There is slated to be a re-election kickoff event that is open to the public 4:30 to 6 p.m. March 21st at the Creamery Arts Center. This is 411 North Sherman Parkway in Springfield. Most of you are somewhat familiar with where it is. Now, if we lived in a world in which people who adhere to causes did not allow themselves to be politically persuaded to act against their own cause, this event would have countless women protesting in front of it. Specifically those who are against the targeting of women with sexual and arguably violent sexual rhetoric, who already have gone through a history of extreme domestic violence. I suspect, however, particularly women on the left, who portray themselves as so concerned about predators and misogynistic men, will not only not protest this event, but there will be many there to support it. I want to share with you a piece that I'd shared once before at the time that it was happening. We talked about it. From the Missouri Independent, bipartisan Missouri House Ethics Panel seeks sanction for obscene text sent by Democrat. The Missouri House, this again is from towards the end of last year, I believe. The Missouri House should order a Democratic lawmaker who sent a vulgar and sexual message to a colleague during the September special session to stay at least 50 feet away from her, the Ethics Committee recommended Wednesday. The committee, with a unanimous vote of its 5 Republicans and 5 Democratic members during an October 29th hearing, also recommended that State Rep Jeremy Dean, a Democrat from Springfield, loses committee seats, undergo sexual harassment prevention training, and have his seat on the House floor and his parking spot moved. Not eliminated, I'll note, but moved. The committee's report and recommendations were made public for the first time after they were published Wednesday in the Journal for the opening day of last year's session. Ethics Committee Chairman Lane Roberts, a Republican from Joplin, said the recommended punishment is in line with punishments recommended during past actions of the committee. The Ethics Committee can recommend a range of punishments, including censure and expulsion from the House. Roberts said at the time, quote, "Our goal here is to make sure that what we do is balanced. And part of that balance is looking back through our history, how we handled such things in the past." Dean was given 15 days to object to the sanctions and did not. In an interview with The Independent, Dean said that he did not object because he accepts that the texts were inappropriate, but he added that he thinks the ethics complaints were motivated by politics. Now, let me give you a little bit of background without giving too much detail. And what the target of his text messages was Representative Williams, a Republican from Ditmer. And she, during, I believe it was, they have these, prior to session with sort of the newbies, the freshmen, the orientation style stuff. And so the incoming lawmakers spend time around one another. And during that period of time, some of what, they talk about their backgrounds and things they've been through in life and so forth, whatever it may be, she talked about the fact that she and her family had been through a great deal of very severe domestic abuse. And without going into too much detail, it all came to a head at one point in which he was slated to go to prison the following day tried to lure her to a particular location, and it became very, very, very clear based off of some of the things that were there at that particular location. He tried to lure her. His plan was to kill him and the kids, or to kill her and the entire family, wipe them all out. This was a very long, sustained terror campaign that she was a victim of. One of the individuals that was privy to that information as these people were opening up to one another and getting to know each other was also at the time freshman state rep Jeremy Dean. So he was aware of this. At some point, he was unhappy with some vote, something that Republicans were pushing, and so he sent a text specifically to this female lawmaker. And it read, quote, and by the way, this isn't, I'm going to read to you the rest of the story here. This isn't in the story. It just sort of references something obscene. But what it said was, I'm surprised you guys can even talk with Trump's blank shoved that far down your throats. Then it was followed up with a text saying, make sure it's not blurry. Now, the make sure it's not blurry, and this is an important part of this, to me anyhow, in terms of the sort of person someone is. When he sent this text to her, knowing the trauma that she had endured, he was watching her. He was like just sitting there watching to see how it hit her. And what he observed was that somebody taking a photo. He knew what was going on. She was showing some other lawmaker. There was a photo being taken. And so he said, sort of mocking her, make sure it's not blurry, talking about the photo that was being taken of his text. This is a psychopath. This is, in my assessment, extreme predatory behavior. Just, one, to send it to someone that you know has that sort of traumatic background, specifically targeting that person, to lie in wait, just watching so you can get your jollies in seeing how hard it hits her. And then when you see that she is making sure there's evidence of it, you make the smart remark, make sure the photo's not blurry. That is a sick psychopath. Now, back to the piece at the time that Jeff City was making a determination on how to deal with this individual. At the time of the text, the election committee, this had to do with, this was around the period of time that they were talking about redistricting. At the time of the text, the election committee was taking testimony on the proposal to change how majorities are counted for constitutional amendment purposes by initiative petition. That's what it was, the initiative petition discussion. In the text, Dean included a description of an oral sex act with the president questioned how Republicans could talk while engaged in it. The text message became public when a screenshot of it was shared on social media by former Republican State Rep Adam Schwadron. Dean was watching the committee meeting on an online live stream, sent another text after seeing Williams' reaction. The report states the report does not describe the content of the second message. And as I just told you, he was watching to see how hard it hit her reaction, and then he told her, make sure that, it's not a blurry screenshot. The report states that Williams, the victim, was shocked by these messages, which were unprofessional and disruptive to the legislative process. House Minority Leader Ashley Ahn, a Democrat from Kansas City, removed Dean from his committee assignment and has not placed him on any committee for this year's session. Both Dean and Williams testified during the October 29th hearing, and Dean admitted sending the text, the report states. He stated that he recognized that the messages were inappropriate and unprofessional and that he regretted sending them. Dean denied any intent to disrupt the legislative process, intimidate Williams, or improperly influence her participation in the committee hearing. He's just a scumbag, that's all. The Ethics Committee is the only House committee with equal number of Republicans, Democrats, and minority members. Vice Chair, the 10 members all approved of the sanctions. The committee's unanimous vote shows members thought the conduct was significantly egregious and that we needed to address it, Roberts said. Very serious consequences needed to be commensurate with the conduct, but again, it needed to be balanced with what we've historically done so that we're not guilty of treating one person different than another. Now, it isn't listed in the story what other situations similar to this they were gauging it off of. I'm not familiar with any other particular situation that fits this dynamic, but I guess it is Jeff City. In an interview with The Independent, Dean said that he sent the text to Williams because he thought he could joke with her, saying, since the freshman bus tour, Rep. Williams and I had what I would consider a very good working friendship, and I obviously crossed the line with the text message. I totally accept that. Now, for me, this is arguably the biggest red flag that tells us what goes on in this guy's head. Now, if you were in this situation, you think about what's the biggest lesson that you learned. Dean says the biggest lesson that he learned in all of this is that you have to watch your back. There are people in this city that you think are your friends, people that you can joke around with, but at the end of the day, a lot of people are here for their own political gains. So he turned it around on her. He's the victim. That's what he said was the biggest lesson. Not that he was wrong. Not that you should not make jokes of that particular nature, targeting a woman who is, who is the background of extreme violent domestic abuse. Not that it's, not a whole litany of things that most people would think a normal people would find to be the biggest lesson. His was that she's just a piece of trash that took advantage of the situation. He thought that they were such good friends, and she's a horrible person that turned a joke around for political purposes to try to punish him. This is not a good person in terms of how he has demonstrated his not only actions in doing this, but the biggest lesson that he has learned. Now, I just want to say a couple of more words about this. We do have to take a break, get a traffic update, because this is where we find out where the Democrat Party really, truly is when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 66. Tonight, a slight chance of showers between midnight and 2 a.m., otherwise partly cloudy with a low near 41. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 63, and taking a look at Friday, sunny skies with a high near 72.
The Democrat state rep, Jeremy Dean, announcing re-election, and this is an individual that because of his targeting, he sent a text message to a female lawmaker specifically with, he referenced Trump shoving his blank down her throat and her colleagues' throats, violent sexual rhetoric, knowing that she had suffered for years extreme domestic violence. And even if that hadn't been the case, he did this as a lawmaker. And then observed watching her online during a committee hearing so he could see her reaction to it. And then when he realized that she was taking a snapshot of it, mocked her essentially by saying, make sure it's not blurry. Then when he was, I guess you could use the term discipline. I mean, they had the ability to eject him from the House, but decided not to. Instead, he had to go through sexual harassment courses, and she essentially has a restraining order against him, their own version of it, if you will. He has to stay 50 feet away from her. Now, Democrats have not called for him to step down. They have not called for him to resign, which I can almost understand if you have a slim majority or you're just a couple of votes away from having a majority because you're like, yeah, we don't really believe that this is the best guy, the best representation of a Democrat, but boy, we're so close. Republicans have a supermajority. This seat, lose it or gain it, does not change any positioning that the Democrats have. Zero. There is zero upside to not removing this guy other than if you just are okay with this behavior. But here's where we're really going to see who the Democrats really are. Because you could argue, and even Republicans, they were saying at the time, well, we didn't expel him because we tried to find a balance of how to, punish him, but at the same time, we didn't want to go overboard, and so we looked at historical context, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Now, though, it's election season, and we're talking about a primary season. So, clean slate. And the Democrats get to pick whomever in terms they support, because any new Democrat can run, any new Democrat can represent the 132nd. And Jeremy Dean clearly, if he has been talked to by the Democrat Party and they've said, listen, treating women like trash and enjoying it and then blaming it on them, we don't feel that that is the sort of thing we want somebody representing our party to be. So we're gonna ask you not to run for re-election. Now, if they did that, he decided not to listen and is running anyhow. But this is where the Democrat Party has a decision to make. Given that it's a clean slate and they get to choose from countless Democrats out there that I'm sure would love to run in that area. I mean, after all, it's clearly a blue area. Crystal Quaid held it for years, and Jeremy Dean, who was pretty much an unknown, he won the seat. So it's not like there's a real lack of Democrats in that particular area of Springfield. They should have no trouble recruiting. So will the Democrat Party publicly say, nope, this is not our guy? We have a choice. And the choice is between sticking with someone who treats women this way and then blames them, acts as if he's the victim, or somebody who doesn't do that. And You would think that outlets like the News Leader would go and ask some of these people. They would go and ask Crystal Quaid, who used to hold that seat, or some of the other Democrat lawmakers, particularly those in the Springfield area. Do they support his candidacy? Do they think it is proper for someone who has admitted what he did, someone who literally has to stay 50 feet away from a female lawmaker, whether that is somebody the Democrat Party, given that they have any choice in this matter now that it's election season, is that who they are going to stick with? Is that a representation of their party? I suspect that there isn't going to be a great deal of pressure. All of these left-wing groups that love to hold up their signs claiming that Donald Trump treats women like trash are not only not going to protest this guy, they'll probably open their checkbooks to write donations for him. He will not receive anywhere near the scrutiny that a non-Democrat would receive if he were in this same position. And he'll run and he'll probably get elected. I mean, maybe he won't. But again, what is that? And let me tell you why. Because you got to gauge. You got to figure out, okay, so what do the Democrats have to gain? What is it about him that they feel it's necessary to support as opposed to some other Democrat? What's the game plan here? I don't think there is one. There is no benefit to it. They're just okay with this behavior. They think it's not that big of a deal. They think that this lawmaker who is the victim of it is some whiny broad who's trying to make a big deal out of something. And that this sort of behavior is not a problem for them. To me, that is the only viable rationale for the silence from the Democrat Party and the refusal to say, no, this isn't who represent us. So this is an opportunity for the Democrats in Springfield in particular, Jeff City as a political party, to let the state of Missouri know what sort of party they are. This, by the way, shouldn't be just a Springfield issue. This is a statewide issue because we're talking about the Democrat Party in the state of Missouri. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Hey, thank you. I wanted to read something for the fine folks over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Molly, she wrote, excellent service from Foreman Mechanical. They always answer the phone and they always fix the problem, and warranties are honored. They get here quickly and they're always polite and do such a great job. Thank you. And honestly, that pretty much sums it up. When you're dealing with heating and cooling issues, you don't want excuses. You want answers, you want fast service, and a company that stands behind their work. And that's exactly what Foreman Mechanical does. They offer annual maintenance programs, simple repairs, and new unit installs, and they're just good, honest folks. They've been in business a long time now, locally owned, just small business. They've got you covered for all of your HVAC needs. Now, if it's time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today and schedule that appointment. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
So Gavin Newsom, as many of you know, over the weekend he was giving a talk before a black audience, and he made sure to let them know, hey, I'm not better than you, because they certainly needed that assurance, apparently, and demonstrated that by claiming that he gets very bad SAT scores and has a very difficult, you don't ever catch him reading speeches because he just can't read. And, of course, many people noted that it seemed as if picking a black audience to say that to seemed just a little bit racist. He then claimed that that was an attack on people with dyslexia because he has dyslexia. This is an excuse that he has used on more than one occasion. It is seemingly going to become a go-to for him anytime Ted Cruz the week prior had referenced the fact that he is historically illiterate because Gavin Newsom was talking about something and he was historically wrong. And so Senator Cruz noted that he's historically illiterate, to which Gavin Newsom shot back, how, dare you say that about somebody with dyslexia, which it's just... If I were somebody that really had dyslexia, I'd be like, hey, dude, can you not use that as an excuse for everything? Every time you get criticized for not knowing something or saying something that is perceived as racist, that people are criticizing you for dyslexia, because that's not what's happening here. But one of the other things that he has said, and this is a theme that he has used in front of black audiences, that he had it poor. Oh, he was poor. He was at home while mama was working. He was eating macaroni and cheese out of the box. And this is, again, how he believes in order for black people to accept him, he has to be one of them. And so that's what it's the stereotypes. Now, Cornel West, the ex-Harvard professor, has really ripped him. He's an extreme left-winger. He ran for president as a Democrat, and though he does have reasons to perhaps be biased against the Democrat Party, because as a black man, they fought to have him thrown off the presidential ballot because they clearly thought it might hurt Kamala Harris. He posted that when Gavin Newsom, thinks of blacks, he thinks of lower SATs. The mindset sits at the core of white supremacy. The belief that black people are less beautiful, less moral, less intelligent. Don't play with us like that, California governor. And so Gavin Newsom, by one of the leading voices of the intellectual black community, has noted that Gavin Newsom is at the core of white supremacy. Now, he did an interview on CNN just in the last couple of days, and he, in order to give it the best context, I wanted to play for you a podcast interview, and we've played this before. Gavin Newsom, it's on a podcast, Black Podcasters, in which he's talking about the struggles of growing up so poor. Man, yeah, man, we're just, rolling dice in the alleyway, and we're just waiting for mama to come. I mean, it's just such disgusting pandering. So Gavin Newsom there talking to black podcasters, so poor, at home alone, watching the TV by himself, no parents there, scrambling to find anything he can in the cupboard to eat, boxes of macaroni and cheese. Here he is on CNN with Dana Bash. And this is, I believe, just the last couple of days. It may have been as recent as yesterday on that upbringing.
Oh, this guy.
I mean, so you kind of got the sense he was trying to. He's like, well, it was both worlds. So when I was home with mom, I was poor and just like black people and eating macaroni out of the box while she was at work. But at the same time, I got to go on safaris and hang out with celebrities growing up and, flew helicopters around. And so, yeah, okay.
He's so slimy.
He's really, well, that's just like the average inner city black person, isn't it? When they're not at home watching TV waiting for mom to get home from work, they're on these safaris with their grandparents or their dad. They're out there hanging out with celebrities. I mean, it's the exact same thing.
Just normal.
I really, the one thing that surprises me about Gavin Newsom is how apparently unprepared he is for the national spotlight when it comes to this stuff. I know it's easy to observe from afar and to say, well, I would have said this and that, but I really believe I would be much better at this than he would. And I've never done anything like this in terms of a national spotlight. I mean, it's just amazing to me how unaware and just how unprepared. It's unpreparedness to BS his way through this stuff and to make comments that are so obviously pandering to the point that, of course, clearly if it was a Republican saying it, they'd be considered racist. But, it to me, at the same time, it really does truly highlight the perspective of the Democrat Party when it comes to black people. I mean, let's not forget, the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, last year claimed black kids didn't know what computers were. And it wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was during prepared speeches talking about the need to, additional funding for black kids and, because they don't even know what computers are. And then it's Joe Biden. Well, if you don't vote for Democrats, specifically him, you don't even count as a black person. Then there's this audio that someone has brought up, and this is going around back to back against the recent audio where he's telling a black audience when it comes to reading that you won't ever see him reading a speech. He can't read. This is something that, now again, if you criticize him for saying this and pandering, he claims that you're making fun of people with dyslexia. But that is his presentation of his ability to read in front of a black audience. Well, here he was some time ago, resurfaced on the internet, him sitting down for a podcast interview with two white authors. So he's gone from, you won't even see me, I can't even read my own speeches before a black audience because he feels like that's how to connect with them. Talking to white people, he not only reads, but he's able to, despite the fact that he says that he, in his mind, it's not even very fast reading, can get through a 263-page book in an hour and a half and absorb it to the degree that he can give an articulated critique of it. There's this piece, will get posted, and it was from Yale Insights several years ago, and it's from 2018. White liberals present themselves as less competent in interaction with African Americans, and so they did this research project to determine if Republicans and conservatives talk to black people differently than liberals and Democrats do, and they found that when it came to, like, there's two different, essentially broke it down, two forms of dialogue. One that is more of sort of a feeling, emotionally driven to try to connect with people. And then there's the intellectual. And when it came to speaking to black people with the more emotional language, that Republicans and Democrats were even. They both spoke to them in the same manner. But when it came to speaking to them from the mind intellectually, Republicans spoke to them the exact same as they did white audiences. There was no statistical difference whatsoever. Treated them the same. But liberals dumbed down their language. Talked to black audiences as if they believed they could not comprehend the same sort of conversation or discussion that a white person could have. We'll get that. Yale Insights has a piece on it. We'll get that posted under Nick's headlines at ksgf.com. HunterHardscapes.com, a few of the reviews. Sharon, you can see this on their site. A shout out to Daniel and his crew for making my back patio a beautiful space to enjoy with family, friends. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor have been taking care of my lawn for several years now, from mowing to this beautiful landscaping project. I have been and will continue to recommend Daniel and his crew to family, friends, and of course all of you. Kara said Daniel Hunter and his crew did an amazing job with our backyard pool area. I called him for a retaining wall, and he transformed our backyard. Professional, communicative, efficient, attentive, and creative. I highly recommend the company. They do incredible jobs, and it's a great place. You go to HunterHardscapes.com, and you can see a lot of before and after photos of homes that may be like yours with projects that might fit what you're looking for. And it's got the nice little back and forth slider so you can see before and afters real conveniently. HunterHardscapes.com. Sums up the Democrat Party. Los Angeles is finding people whose homes burned down. The people who still have not been given permits to start rebuilding their homes in the Palisades have begun getting fines from the city for not removing brush from their property. Many of these individuals have not been given the permission to go back onto their property to do so, and some are saying that they don't have any brush at all, yet the government is punishing them financially for lack of brush removal. Always looking out for the little guy. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.